Don't apologise for using personal development tools or the rapid shifts they bring. Now, this may seem like a strange thing to say, but here's the thing. I say all the time that MPA allows you to move through the challenges of life with tremendous speed and with relative ease. Now, this can be a challenge for people around you if it doesn't fit their expectations for what a normal, in quotes, timescale is for such things. So in today's episode, we're going to look at dealing with the challenges to those around you that can come up in response to your healing journey, and especially when using rapid transformational healing tools like MPA. Let's do this. Hit it, Kim.
Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. We are at episode number 94. Blimey, we're getting close to that 100. I'll talk about that in a moment. So, being episode 94, that means if you'd like to go and check out the show notes, you can go to www.beabrillianthuman.com/94. And that's your little tip there. Just slash then the episode number if you want to find any of the previous episodes. Dive in and listen to any that you've missed. Or if you're brand new to the show, catch up, have a binge watch. It's better than Netflix by a mile. And welcome if you're brand new. I'm delighted that you've found us. Do go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you like this show. It means you'll get notified of the upcoming shows that we've got going on. It comes out every Tuesday. And and if you're back for more, you know I'm so delighted that you've come back for more and that I get to be in your ears every week. So today, I said I'd mention about the 100th episode. Yes, I'm going to have a bit of a celebration, really. I mean, 100 episodes in, it seems like only yesterday that I started this show. So I'm inviting you to contribute to that show. And the way I'd love you to do that is if you're a regular listener and, you don't have to have listened to all the episodes, I get it. But if there's a particular episode that has been stand out for you, maybe you've just listened to like 3 episodes, but one of them's your favorite. Let me know. Tell me which one or which ones are your favorite. And if you've got the time and energy, tell me why you loved that episode. So you can do that. You can get hold of me. You can send me an email, which is joel@nonpersonalawareness.com. You can hit me up on social media. Mostly you'll find me at Joel Young MPA. So on places like Instagram and Twitter, you'll find me there under that. If you're a Facebooker, you can go to facebook.com/MPArocks and message me there. Where else can you get hold of me? Oh yes, of course, YouTube. This podcast, in case you're not aware, as well as being on all these wonderful platforms, it also goes out on YouTube as well. Obviously, it's not visual. Podcasts are not a visual medium, but it seems people like them on YouTube. So if you're a YouTuber, cool. You can leave a comment. It's dead straightforward. Oh, and by the way, if you're on Facebook and you go to MPA Rocks, there'll always be a post that announces the show, and you can comment there if you don't want to direct message me. And the last way is you can leave me a voice message. You can do that, of course, on the various sort of messenger platforms. But also, if you go to the website, www.beabrillianthuman.com, then there's a button there which says leave me a message. You can hit that, fill in your details, and you can leave a voice message, which I can then put on the show. If you'd like to say, and again, what's your favourite episode? But also, if you're just loving the show in general, let me know. It'd be great to have a bit of fun on the 100th episode. That'd be fab. All right, so today's episode, what are we talking about? Well, as I said in the intro, sometimes being on a healing journey can create challenges for people. And I found particularly with, what is it now? 15 years of MPA, it can work really fast and really quickly. And that can bring shit out for people. You're not supposed to heal that fast. And of course, I'm mentioning rapid transformational healing tools like MPA. If you're brand new to the show, you're probably wondering what the hell, I quite like that. What the hell is MPA? Well, it is a rapid transformation tool. It is, put simply, a way to work at the identity level to shift the things, whether it's letting in abundance or letting go of that yucky stuff. It's powerful, powerful stuff. And it's a simple 6-line spoken word process. You can actually download it for free if you go to joelyoungmpa.com, or again, if you go to the show notes for today, there'll be a link there. You can just get hold of the process itself. In essence, it's about not taking things personally, which means not identifying, not aligning yourself with things that aren't necessarily true for you, which is deeply powerful. And because it's so simple and easy to use, it's one of those things that can make a big difference very, very quickly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and tell you a bit of a story of my own experience, and also give you some sense of how can you deal with that kind of thing. What are my suggestions around this whole topic? All right, let's get into it. So to paint the picture for you here, let's kick off with a personal story of mine, of my own direct experience of this happening. So back in December of 2015, my 6-year relationship came to an end. Now, a relationship end, especially a 6-year one, is a big deal in anyone's life. And there are kind of cultural and habituated expectations about, again, air quotes, taking time to heal, moving through the grief process, and genuinely sort of dealing with the pain of breakup. Now, I get that. I really do. It's like, for a lot of people, it does take time, and it is important to honor it. But at the time, I was doing a lot of MPA. I mean, I MPA'd around the grief, the lost dreams, the stories I had about, that I wish she'd been able to be, what I thought she should have been anyway, or what I thought I should have been as well, and everywhere, there was pain lingering in me over the breakup, everywhere that my identity was tied to the relationship, everywhere I felt conflicted, in spite of the clear truth, the decision was mine, it was the right to go. Still, sometimes out of a relationship, we can have that sort of weird inner conflict. I MPA'd my fears, my sadness, and what I wanted going forward. I did a shit ton of MPA, and it was amazing. But because that intensity of just doing that inner work, after just a couple of weeks, I felt incredibly clear, incredibly free, and incredibly whole. And I was kind of ready just to step out and discover myself anew. But what I didn't expect back then was a backlash for doing just that. Apparently being happy, whole, and vibrant too soon is a crime. Into the stocks with me, squashed tomatoes at the ready. I was told I was insensitive, unreal, escapist. These kind of accusations came from various mutual friends of my ex and me. And I even got an unsolicited private message from a business coach who told me that, my social media output was being too upbeat. Too soon is bad for business, she said. People will see you as uncaring. That could negatively affect your brand. Now, I get that from her perspective, it was well intentioned. Nevertheless, it really gave me pause for thought. I mean, on one hand, she has a point. As I've said, people can have a hard time if you step out of the box. It challenges their reality, and they'd much rather you get back in there. And if you don't, they'll try and find a way to put you back in, at least in their minds, labeled uncaring, for example. It's a way, even if it's not true, in their minds, it puts the box straight, and that can seem much easier to them than getting curious about a new possibility, which could potentially rock their world. And, we're not big fans of that as general human beings. Now, that it may sound like I'm judging it, but actually I'm just, stating unfortunate truth about our society. Our culture in general today has this kind of mindset. And that's what actually the business coach was pointing to. So I could really see that she was trying to say, well, I get that you're transformed, but people won't understand. But, it's a really good inquiry. It made me think about this stuff. I had to ask myself a very potent question. do I want to align my energy with that thinking? And for me, the answer was a clear no. So I got back to her and I said, I teach tools that facilitate rapid change, more rapid than is normal. That's part of, how I attract people to this stuff. It is my brand. I'm call myself a 21st century heretic precisely because MPA challenges many of the modern day norms. And I said to her, what example would I be if I muted my living testament to that? I was a living, breathing testament to the possibility of, after a 6-year relationship, within 2 weeks, you could genuinely, I'm not talking about running away from shit here, genuinely feel wholeheartedly clear and clean. What integrity would I have if I didn't stand in that? What would I be teaching, to those who decided to take a full advantage of the tools I offer? That you can use them, they'll work really quickly, but keep the results secret. Set yourself free with speed and ease, and then hide the fact that you have. It made no sense to do that. It didn't feel true. So, it's not that I'm devoid of compassion for other people's pace, quite the contrary, or that their perception and stories they have might cause them pain, or, quite the contrary. In fact, speaking of stories creating pain, last episode 93, was about how we often take responsibilities for other people's feelings. There's a big difference between having compassion for that and taking responsibility for it. That's episode 93. I'll put it in the show notes. And for me, the best way to show the world that new possibility was to be that unashamedly and fully. So when you look at that in the bigger picture, I put together some questions you can ask yourself, because whether it's branding based questioning of you just being your beautiful healed self, or other areas, it's good to look at where sometimes we do mute ourselves, we mute our healing in general because of that sense of the discomfort it's going to bring to others. So whenever we back away from our power, when we sort of hide away from being who we truly are, in the truth of how we are or want to show up in the world, there's a sort of a underlying pain that happens inside of us. It's like it sort of irks at the soul, doesn't it? And so in a way, I've put together sort of 4 questions to sort of really highlight this, because I'm wanting to encourage you to stand in your beautiful self, in the truth of you. So, but there is a lot of social pressure. There's a lot of, it's almost unconscious social pressure where there's just this sort of sense that it's not okay for certain things to be. Certainly around, how your healing journey can affect other people. So I'll go through these 4 questions to ask yourself. They're kind of call-out questions, or you could say they're sort of highlighting questions of maybe you're not aware that you do this. And I'm encouraging you to really look at it. We'll get into how you can look at it in a moment, but these are the 4 questions. So the first one is, do you limit your enthusiasm, your happiness, or your wholeness to make those around you feel more comfortable? Now, this is a really interesting one. In a sense, again, I've talked about the mechanics of it in the last episode 93. But it's an interesting thing that we do. It's like it's like, again, this social idea that if someone's upset, then you being happy is somehow crass. You have to mute it. You have to dim your light. Otherwise, somehow there's some you become this social criminal who's so insensitive and all the rest of it. And it's certainly one of the ways we do it, certainly in the healing space, where maybe there's been a group situation and lots of people are experiencing the same thing, but there's different paces, and then you feel like you have to just not have your enthusiasm or not be your bubbly self. If you've done the inner work and you've changed quicker than those around you, you can end up limiting that enthusiasm. Now, there's a difference here between what I was talking about last time, where you can do that from an empowered space. But it's very different from doing it from an empowered space of making a decision, giving all the equations to do it, versus doing it from that sense of that social pressure. the difference there is that in that case, you're coming from a space of not being true to you, but just it's more of a unconscious suppression based on herd mentality rather than genuine, empowered, heart-centered decisions to do that. And the reason that's important is because when you go into that level of discernment, there are times when, you know, when you're living the truth according to genuine inquiry, that sense of enthusiasm or happiness or standing in your wholeness in relation to healing can be an example to others. Again, that's what I was saying in relation to the branding, is like, what example would I be, you know, promoting and sharing tools for rapid transformation if I wasn't willing to stand in it. Now, that may not be true for you in every case, but it's a really good question to ask. If in general, do you limit your enthusiasm, your happiness, your wholeness to make others around you feel more comfortable? And again, it isn't just about, you know, this is a question that's a really good question to ask yourself, that isn't just about whether, you know, in terms of rapid healing and transformation, if that's something that you do in general, it's like, you know, you have to sort of meet other people's states, then again, it's worth the inquiry to check if you're really, you know, living your truth in relation to people. So the next question, they're all kind of similar, but I'm taking different angles. So number 2 is, do you hide away the inner work you do for fear of ridicule or change? Now, in reality, this is something which I think used to be a big deal. I think and it's a wonderful thing these days. There is more social acceptance of doing inner work. Thank you, Hollywood. Hollywood seems to be the church of the modern age, isn't it? It's like they can stand up and make things normalized. Like, there's so much great work being done on different, you know, sexual genderism, racism, all these things, and the wonderful normalization of those things which used to be seen as not socially normal. I'm off track here, but I'm going with it. Like Brokeback Mountain was a wonderful thing. It was kind of the first time that you had gay lovers seen on the big screen, and there's a way that through that social medium, the social normality of it now. You know, now we have, you know, gay kisses across the board in TV shows all over the place, and no one bats an eyelid, which is a friggin' wonderful thing. Whereas before that, it was like, oh, I can't do that. And something similar has happened in relation to doing inner work. It used to be that there was a lot of ridicule if you were found out to do, you know, any of this kind of woo-woo in quote stuff. Then, you know, it was often ridiculed and you were a bit nutty. Not so much now. Again, I think I'm going to give Hollywood the credit here. You know, many sports stars and movie stars and all those kind of things will talk about going and seeing, whether it's therapists, coaches, whatever, in order to do the inner work, and how the inner work really relates to the outer results or success, depending on what the context is. Nevertheless, these things can be slow to work our way down, especially into families. And if you're in a family that is, say, very, you know, orthodox or normal in its thinking, and you start doing this inner work, sometimes I have seen people will literally hide away, and they'll be secretive about the fact that they're doing this kind of inner work. Now, again, contextually, you can make an empowered choice, but it is a good question to ask yourself, because it would be a sign or a symbol or a signal, if you're doing that, to sort of question what is it that you're really up to. And if it starts to elicit things like shame, then in a sense that's only sort of making things harder for you. So if you're hiding away that you even do inner work because of that ridicule or change, that's something to really question and look at how you can maybe step into a more empowered space. Now, another way that can go is question 3. Do you shy away from inner work or resist its impact because it might challenge the status quo? Now, this is huge. I mean, definitely in terms of rapid transformation, but across the board with our healing journeys, I see this. It's really kind of sad in a way that people sometimes, because they're afraid that the things will change. On one hand, they're going into inner work because they want change, and yet the change that it might elicit in terms of the dynamics of their relationship, for example, is a scary thing. So I really understand it. It's really difficult. It's like a rock and a hard place at times. It's a double bind. There's no win in that. Hence, I'm asking this question. And again, the two sides it can come on is you may start doing that inner work. It makes a difference, but then you see it ricochets and creates ripples in the other people around you. And then either you start to shy away and back off from doing that work, or you find it has the results, it has this positive impact, but then because the status quo is being challenged by your change, you end up sort of almost kind of unconsciously and yet deliberately backing off from the change that happens. And what you're really doing there is you are putting more weight on the status quo than the original change or transformation you were looking for when you started doing that inner work. And so really it's a matter of really inquiring what truly matters to you. And often that fear of challenging the status quo has more to do with not being sure how to ride the wave of that change and make it a positive win-win for everybody, versus this sort of often fear-sponsored ideas, that everything's going to come crashing down and you lose all of the good stuff that you had from what was there before. And that never really has to be the case. The essence of the good stuff that you've got in however you've set your life up before you started doing transformation can remain. It's only really the stuff that doesn't serve anymore that really needs to fall away, or tends to fall away just by the nature of the fact that you're stepping into a different vibration. And the fourth question is, do you choose to align with limited ideas and possibilities when inside you're crying to step into your power? So this is more of a subtle thing. I see this in sort of social situations where, you'll go along with the conversation of the crowd and it doesn't align with yourself. Now, again, depending on the degree that you're doing this, I mean, it can be a mechanism by which you resist or, shy away from inner work. Generally, it sort of shows up more likely in social situations as I see it. You go along with ideas. Now, in that case, it's relatively mild, but if you're doing it consistently, that's why I've said you're crying to step into your power. It's one of those irks the soul situations, because if there's that impulse to grow, that impulse to change, to let go of habits and stuff like that, then if you start even at a pretend level or a social pretense really, then you start aligning with ideas that don't match that. It kind of creates this flip-flop inside the sort of mixed messages that you're sending your inner being, your mind, the energy of the universe, if you look at it that way. And this tends to just sort of slow things down, and you'll generally find, well, my experience of this with people and with myself, I've done all of these, of course, is it just that that inner soul frustration builds, and it tends to drive things to a head, and then some crisis or something happens that sort of forces your hand, because the soul has got a sniff of the good stuff and it goes for it. So what do you do with this? What can you do with this, with the people responses and inside? There's a few things I've got for you, so let's have a look at that. So if you're wincing at any of those questions, then I get it. And the thing I'm going to say to you is, if you find yourself doing that, then start with some self-forgiveness. Understand there is a lot of social pressure in there, and courage for this kind of thing takes practice. And the thing about this is to think of it like many of the episodes I sort of mention, or it comes in passing, because it's such an underlying part of my philosophy. When you look at these shifts, you can take it in baby steps, take it in little steps, and know that when you're shifting a pattern, sometimes it's those little steps that will help you to move from one place to the other. So, and when you look at it, I mean, we're going to talk about self-forgiveness of your own self, because when let me give you an analogy. When you're caught in the current in the sea, it's going to take usually a fair bit of effort to escape that current, but while you're in it, you're really in the flow, you're being carried by it. And a lot of the stuff is actually that in practice in terms of our sort of human social psychology. We get caught in the general flow of the sort of mass ideas of what's appropriate. I mean, to give you an example of this, I was talking about generally after ending a relationship, there's a perceived amount of time you need. There's all sorts of dogma around how you're supposed to respond at this point in your life. It's the same with death and grief. There's and a lot of it is based on studies of this. It's not like it's completely just someone that everyone picks an arbitrary idea. But what I'm saying is it doesn't mean that that's necessarily has to be the case for you. And a lot of the ideas about, you know, the stages of grief and those kind of things, they are true for most people. But if you're someone who's encountered tools for rapid transformation, there are ways available. It's not just MPA, by the way. I always say MPA is a way, not the way. There are loads of incredible tools right now. And if you really commit to those tools, you can move through these emotional things, not by denying, not by sort of just shoving them away in some corner of your mind, but genuinely wholeheartedly meeting them. Stuff can move way quicker than is the established normality for these things to change. And so the self-forgiveness comes in, is understanding that other people don't necessarily get that. And to a degree, you have to, well, to use an MPA, not take it so personally if people just don't get it. And as I said, they'll then come up with a label for you, which can sometimes be quite derogatory or judgmental, but it's their way of trying to somehow put in place what their worldview is, versus them watching you, you know, getting over things so damn quickly. And also it will shine a light on if they're having a hard time and taking their time, they may project or feel some sense of judgment that might not even be there from you or others. It's because it's taking them longer, or there's so many things that can come up in people. So self-forgiveness, yes, and also compassion and the understanding of, you know, what is happening. And again, if you go into sort of relational situations, you know, the reason that people want you to get back in their box is that status quo thing. So it may not be you that's sort of worried about challenging the status quo, but it may be that your partner or your family are really seriously threatened by this change in you. Why is that? Well, you know, you can independently and empoweredly go off and do some work and it means changes in you, but we're part, say, of a family system, or if you're with a partner, then it's like you have a system and it works in the way that it's worked. When you change, it changes the system, but in a sense, what matters to them is it means that they may have to change. And then it brings up questions they didn't necessarily ask for, like, do I want this change? And what does it require for me to change? And is this, you know, that they get scared. So there's a lot of that kind of fear stuff that goes on. So again, the difference that I'm going to direct you back to the last episode, episode 93, the difference between taking responsibility for that versus having compassion for it and finding ways to work through it, which are kind and understanding and seek out the win-wins and can be supportive. Very different from then you going, oh, well, sod it, I'll just go back to the old way so you don't have to face your shit, right? It's a very different thing. So, and so it's good to have an idea of, you know, the stuff that this transformational path can bring up for you and for the people around you. But then, as I say, my invitation is to get really clear and to stand in it. And of course, then you can find the kindest possible ways to sort of communicate that. Really, that's my humanist speaking. It's like I'm a fan of going, well, stand in your power, but then you can do your best to sort of learn how to communicate it well and to be a good example of it, rather than just going, oh, well, F you, you know. Hence the previous episode. So on a practical thing, I mean, I've mentioned MPA. MPA is a rapid transformational tool, but you can use MPA in this very situation. you can look at what you fear other people might say. That would be a good inquiry, out of which, you can do some MPA processes, and what resistances and challenging emotions come up in you. That's also, you can work with those using MPA. So to use the MPA vernacular, you would find cookie cutters and then run them through the MPA process, and people will find that that revolutionary road can be a lot smoother than you think when you use MPA, because it's a tool that really does help you navigate some tricky waters in ways that are literally on topic, quicker and easier than is normal. And again, if you don't already know MPA, you can download that sheet. So again, you can go to joelyoungmpa.com or go to the show notes for today, www.beabrillianthuman.com/94, and there'll be a link you can download. It's a very simple 6-line spoken word process. Now, just for transparency, when you do that, you'll be offered our core training, which is called MPA Basic Training, which I do recommend, especially, well, on two fronts. I'm going to contradict two like cover everything with two sides. Well, in one sense, if you've not used this kind of thing before, the training will really help you understand what the heck's going on. And if you just use a lot of other stuff, the thing I find is that people fall into the traps of bringing sort of, if you like, with well-meaning dogma from other modalities they've used, and they miss the fullness of MPA, and there's sort of subtle nuances of how we work with MPA that can be different from other tools that are out there. And you'll get a limited time where you'll be offered it at a ridiculous, insane discount, to encourage you to dive in and just go for it and get that extra bit of help in using it. And the fact is, if I go back to that example in 2015, there's no doubt I was tempted by the resistance to mute myself, especially on social media, especially, that advice from the brand specialist. It gave me real pause for thought, but I got the lesson and was able to sort of share the story, and it really helped in the end clarify the importance of standing it. So, follow my example. I make no apology for the fact that I'm committed to using the tools I have, and I make no apology for the fact that MPA moved me through that pain in particular faster than seemed normal to other people. And really, this episode, I'm heartfully, shall we say, encouraging you to make no apology for your wonderful growth either. Don't be a dick, but you don't have to apologize for being superfly and using tools to make a difference in your life. Stand in the glory of your beautiful, exceptional self, and you'll be showing the world that there's a kinder, freer path available, because life is short, folks, isn't it? And who does it serve to play down your wholeness? If you can save yourself months, even years of suffering, then why wouldn't you? So go out there, use these tools, use MPA, download it if you haven't already. Keep listening to this podcast. Make sure you subscribe. And if you like what you hear, tell people about it. Let's just spread the word. I hope you enjoyed this show. Again, you can go and I'll put those questions down in the show notes. I'll also link the previous episode, which I've mentioned several times. There's also actually another episode springs to mind, which I think is called Relationship Growth, the Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Because a lot of this can be relational. I think that episode talks to some of the things that you might meet if this is going on for you. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. Again, www.beabrillianthuman.com/94 for the show notes for today. I think that's it. We're at a wrap. Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Big hugs. And oh yes, and get in touch about the 100th episode. Let me know which of these episodes has been your favourite or set of favourites. What you love about the show. Why the hell are you here anyway? Tell me why you're here, what you love about it. And we'll be looking forward to, 5 more episodes after this, and we'll be at the 100th episode. Fantastic. All right, I'm rambling. Let's get to it. See you next time. Big hugs, and all that remains is to cue the moon.